So whether we talk about systems thinking or seeing systems or the systems perspective, any of those kind of phrases, they're very integral to what we're doing in this course, but the term can be very daunting. If you look at the way people typically use the word system, it's not my fault, it's the stupid system. Or, we have a systems problem around here, we better get a computer expert in to fix it. Neither of which is really what we're talking about. When we use the word system, we're trying to point to the fact that the realities we're dealing with are densely interconnected. A kid sits in a classroom, but that life of the kid, her community, is there with her or him. The classroom sits within a school. The school sits within a school system, etc. So we're always dealing with these webs of interconnectedness. Now, once you ponder that, you can also get pretty daunted. Like, hey, this is infinitely complex. How the heck are we ever going to figure it out? So I'm going to show you a real simple principle that we found to be extremely useful for people. It has to do with how we look at reality. Different ways in which we encounter and see reality. At one level, you've got the events. That's the stuff that's on the surface. Then you have the deeper patterns of change. Trends. We've got this problem, but didn't we have that same problem or a problem just like it 2 years ago? So you start to see things as recurring over time. And then still a deeper level are the systemic structures. What do I mean by the systemic structures? Well, the simple answer it is the source of the patterns, which in turn are the source of the events. Now, if this is in any way a decent drawing, you can maybe start to picture this is like an iceberg. So all this stuff here is below the water level. It's not what we tend to see. You turn on your gadget and you take a look at the news. What happened in the last 6 hours? I guarantee you the news is always this. It's events. The only problem is if all we see is events, if all this stuff is obscured to us, as a change leader, there's only one thing you can do. When people just see events, all they can do is react to events. And so a lot of the reactiveness in schools, the tendency to kind of jump from this to that, the lack of continuity, the feeling that a lot of educators have of just being always like the fire of the moment, perpetual firefighting, comes because we only see events. If you want to start to shift that, you've got to help people see the deeper patterns and the underlying structures. Now, these underlying structures always have two elements, two dimensions. The mental models in a human system, a social system, are actually part of the structure. And what we often call the artifacts. Now, this term artifacts is a very general term. Think of it as the stuff you can see and touch in the system, how we're organized, how our school looks. The physical design and layout of the school is an artifact. But of course, the artifact is the way it is because people had an assumption, well, that's how school should look. That's what a classroom should look like. These desks should all be in straight lines. Why? Because that's the way it was when I was a kid. And that's my assumption. A great example of artifacts is what we measure. Metrics are a great example of artifacts. But then he asked the question, why do we measure what we measure? That's a question about assumptions and mental models. So all of this comes together to create a multi-level or multi-tiered way of thinking about current reality. Seeing reality more deeply is always a fundamental task of leadership. What does that mean? It means helping people move from just seeing events, which means all they'll ever be able to do is react, to seeing longer-term patterns and the underlying sources of those patterns. That's the systems thinking iceberg.